My name is Gabriella Bermea. I'm an associate and design architect with BLK Architects, being fortunate to serve nationally, regionally, and locally on different AIA affiliated boards. And you are watching A Student's Perspective.
Hi there, and thanks for tuning in to A Student's Perspective, the weekly series that connects students with designers, manufacturers, educators, industry professionals, and design media celebrities to hear their stories on just how they've gotten to where they are now. Through our conversations, we connect the past, present, and future of design to show just how much we can learn from each other to grow towards our fullest potential without prescribed limitations. Think of A Student's Perspective as a weekly design lecture series from the student's point of view. A Student's Perspective is a division of the nonprofit University Hall of Innovation, whose goals are to connect students with the design industry through design challenges and mentorship, and a collaboration with the Marywood University Interior Architecture Program in Scranton, Pennsylvania. All interviews can be found in their video format at www.astudentsperspective.tv. For more information or sponsorship inquiries, please contact universityhallofinnovation@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of A Student Perspective. We're here with Gabriella Bermea. She's a design architect with a passion for philanthropy, education, and advocacy. And I was wondering if you could start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So please call me Gabby. I am a Texas native. I grew up on the border in Eagle Pass, Texas, and then went to university at the University of Arkansas, where I met my husband and we moved to Austin. And thankfully, my family had made the transition here already. So in my university years, I was able to intern with a really incredible K-12 firm, a firm that specializes in education. And it sparked my love for not only volunteering, but for giving back. Being the daughter of a public educator, I knew I wasn't meant for the classroom, but seeing how my talents could personally impact the classroom space and the advocacy space by working in schools seemed like a no-brainer for me. I was a part of that firm for about 4 years, and then in 2020, I made the transition over to BLK Architects, which is a K-12 commercial and automotive firm. And I have just had the great opportunity to see not only opportunity, but really a strength in how we support our clients, our K-12 clients, not only in the classroom, but again, through advocacy efforts with the state capitol, which has just been awesome, which goes to where I am located now. My home base is in Austin, but I do have the privilege of working with clients all over the state of Texas. And in turn, it has opened a broad range of volunteer opportunities for me, both through the American Institute of Architects, through NOMA, and through NCARB.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome how you felt that call to serve for your community, and not necessarily through being in the classroom, but through architecture, which I think is awesome. Could you talk a little bit about how you use educational architecture, like designing schools and such, and how that empowers students?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really critical to think about is schools are generational. They have a generational impact that can go from the grandparent to their grandchild and beyond. We're designing facilities that will last and sometimes outlive ourselves, with high schools that go beyond 100 years, right? What has been fantastic about that is we spend a majority of our day, we as humans, as a society, spend a majority of our day inside of buildings. In being a teacher's kid, I had hours after school and before school that I would spend in my mom's classroom, and was challenged with thinking, is this how can we make these spaces better? And in practicing educational architecture, we truly have the opportunity, not only through our people-focused design process, but in our early on planning stages when we're working with the district to really identify how will you be teaching in these spaces. So I work as a design architect, but I work alongside an educational planner Sarah Kaprowski. She's fantastic. She is a past assistant superintendent. She was one of our clients previously, came on board with us, and she is this conduit really between what the educators need in their space. We call her the translator, right? Between what educators are actually teaching in curriculum and instruction, and then how spaces can facilitate in that. And having to see that really early on in my career has just been mind-blowing. It's been a game changer for me, because truly we're thinking beyond just the aesthetics of a space and the beauty of having daylight and having visibility out and safety and security elements. We're talking about how the space will actually be taught in, and thinking critically and intentionally on everything from group learning spaces to the classroom to open collaboration between a cafeteria and a library, really forward-thinking things from the pre-K all the way to the 12 level and beyond.
That's so awesome. And I love, like, not enough people realize, I think, how much the built environment impacts them. And like, my mom and my grandma both were teachers, so
Yes.
and teachers, so I was in the classroom a lot growing up too. And yeah, it's just something to think about, like how that can have such a positive impact on students. And this is something that I've been talking about a lot. This is something I have been talking about a lot with people who've come on the podcast. And since this is the last episode, I was hoping to get your perspective on just empathy and like how we can be more empathetic and understand our audience for who we're building for.
Absolutely. I think you bring up a really, really strong point. That's another part of my platform is talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion within architecture, within the field. When we're talking about empathetic spaces, I think sometimes we need to go beyond just asking the question, but having architects who are representative of the community, who have grown up in the community, who speak the language, who understand the community's roots and wants. You are building a trust there. And in working in districts, I had the great privilege of working with San Antonio ISD as one of my first clients with VLK. And I walk into a classroom, I walk into our launch process, is our community-driven schematic design process. And you have students who come up to you and say, "Oh my gosh, you look like me. you're speaking Spanish just like me." And it's one of those things that, like, architecture is a really, really tough and demanding field. But when we're in rooms where we can hear from students who say, "I can see a future because you are here and because you are present," it's something that changes your trajectory and makes you feel affirmed to be in the space that you are, and only continues further K through 12 efforts and advocacy efforts. So I think it was a long-winded way of saying, yes, I think we can be very empathetic to the spaces we design by listening to our clients and being visible and truly building a trust with them, building a trust with not only client, but the community at large.
Definitely. So interesting. I think that also ties in really well to, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how you're the rep for the diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Texas Society of Architects and the Association for Learning Environments as the Southern Region Chair. So I was hoping you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So I have served on our EDI, our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee with the Texas Society of Architects. We have statewide committees. I served on the committee starting in 2020 and then through 21. And last year I was co-chair, and last year I was co-chair with Brian Graham, who's actually at LPA, also an educational firm in Dallas. And then this past year I've been able to serve as chair. What's been fantastic about it is really the facilitation piece. So this last year, we not only, we are the advisory board to our executive board, right? Our EDI committee. So intentionally, we look at member statistics, we look at our board statistics, and are asking ourselves truly, what are the numbers? What has history told us on where our board is and where we can do better, where our gaps are, and comparing that to the Texas overall population at large. And in doing that, we have a number of incredible committee members who have different focus items and different platforms that they really want to pursue. And this past April, one of which we have 2 disability advocates, among many other things that they are and that they have accomplished and contribute to. But Richard Sternadori and Ricardo Leon, both associate AIA, they were passionate about creating an Equity for All series with practice innovation for accessible design. They created this fantastic panel of panelists, well-renowned from all over the US, and we had over 500 attendees call into our webinar to receive that credit and understand really what implicit bias was and how it affects the accessibility realm. So in our EDI committee, we have the opportunity to impact at different realms like that. And then in the past, we've also presented at conferences with everything from EDI workshops to how EDI plugs in with affiliations like ACE Mentor Program of Austin. The JEDI role and the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion is with a different organization that's with Association for Learning Environments that I also am very affiliated with and think very highly of. I had originally started that in Central Texas, getting called up by someone, very, very, very incredible architect. Her name is Sita. She works at HKS. And she said, Gabby, I know you're plugged in at the state level. Help us here at the local chapter and see what we can do. So in that, I'm very program driven, right? So if I'm going to talk about equity, diversity, inclusion, we're going to see numbers or we're going to see presentations and panels. So we had the chief equity officer with Austin ISD at the time come speak with our membership on building the table, which essentially said, not only do we have to bring voices to the table, we have to allow those voices to be a part in building the process, which has been this large overarching theme that I've been able to see through both A4LE and AIA, that they are open to those, to these ideas and to this feedback, this open loop feedback, right? From Central Texas, I moved on to the Southern Region Board, where I had the opportunity to serve Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. And in that, we talk about conference activities when it comes to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I had the opportunity to attend Learningscapes in Denver as a scholarship recipient for the Otto D. Grove scholarship. It offset the cost to be able to be in the rooms to talk with our national JEDI representative, Ross Parker. I served in that role for a year and then have passed it on now to another incredible VLKer, Nasario Aregin, where he is serving in that. And then I serve as the SchoolsNEXT chair, which has very much of the same EDI elements plugged in. It is developing students to build the school of the future. So I empower our local chapters to be able to have the resources and the things they need to help that be accomplished. And it's an after-school program, very much like ACE, but it's targeted at middle school, as students as young as middle school. So that's been fantastic. And this year we had 2 teams out of the Southern region, and we have one that will be going to national out in Spring Branch ISD down in Houston. Wow. All right, it was really long-winded. A lot of things.
And like, you're such an inspiration for all these kids growing up too. Like, that's so important that they have a role model to look up to. It's awesome.
Thank you. And it goes beyond just me. I get the chance to work with some really incredible people that also are just inspiring and push us all to do better. And Gabriella, I'm excited to see what you do too. You're in and just seeing all these wonderful things. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. And also, you did mention accessibility in architecture. I was wondering if you could touch a little bit more on that. What does that look like?
Of course. I think it really comes from thinking beyond accessible design, but into inclusive design, into equitable design. The ongoing conversations that our panelists left us with is, why are we hitting the minimums? Texas does a fantastic job with the Texas accessibility standards that we have that are very they keep us accountable. They keep architects accountable and designers and builders. But in that, why do we design to the minimum? How are we truly thinking about everybody in the sense of our physical person? Not only that, but when we bring in mental health and well-being into the conversation as well, we're talking differences in ceiling heights for students with special needs. We visited an exceptional project out in Austin, the Rosedale School, done by Paige, and they really took into account how it's a special needs school, it's a school for students with disabilities, how even a transition in ceiling, not only material, but in ceiling height. So you walk into a gymnasium from a hallway and you need, the students needed a transition before entering this very large, gymnasium can go anywhere from 25 to 30 feet as opposed to a corridor, which may be 14. Providing gradual slopes, providing tactile surfaces along the wall. It's just it's a fantastic way to move forward in design, to think about it intentionally and holistically.
Definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, and I also just want to ask, since there's so many avenues of architecture to go into, since we're talking about schools specifically, could you describe a little bit like the process in designing an educational establishment? Like, do kids ever have to say in like what their school might look like? Is it always, like, I would just love to learn more about how this works.
So this is where I geek out because it's a big part of what brought me to VLK. So we have this incredible UC schematic design charrettes, but this takes it to a next level, our VLK launch process. And at the gist of it, you have the chance to engage with communities, right? Especially coming out of COVID, that, we were trying to do this virtually, which was successful. We had projects that were successful in it. But now we're back. We're in person, we're practicing, and we're bringing everyone from the second grade student to the teacher who's been there for 30 years and giving them the chance to build, but to bring the team together and say, what do you see in your future school? And then the students then present out to the community. They present out to their group at large. I mean, it's a significantly large group. It depends. So I've seen it at everything from the 700 student elementary school to the 3,000 student high school, like the one I'm working at currently in Liberty Hill ISD. And it's such a great way to bring collective engagement together, because you're having students tell you their stories of, here's my path to school every day. No, I do not want the agricultural facility in the front of the school because it comes with smells, because it comes with other things, right? And it's those moments that make you really look back and you're like, yeah, I remember what it was like to be a high school student, but you know what? I'm not one anymore. So to hear their views, to hear their perspective is just valuable. And then in turn, you start to hear, oh, I think I could look at architecture. I think I could look at interior design, at construction, at engineering. And we in turn help solve the diversity and equity gaps that we have in our profession.
That's awesome. Yeah. That like firsthand perspective and remembering what it was to be in that position, for sure.
Yes.
What are some challenges that you face translating kind of their ideas and their perspective to actually making it work?
Yeah, no, that is a completely valid question. So sometimes we'll see big bubbles and sometimes we'll see all different elements. What's been great about our process is that we are continually returning to the district. So we go through that first process, we come back with them for another day, and then we speak to different schematic design exercises after that in interpreting, okay, yes, I see this 6 pod, but what is it they're really looking for? So I'm one of our designers. I have 8 years, it'll be 8 years in May of experience in K through 12 design. We have designers who have been doing this longer than I've been living, which is incredible. And they are capable in bringing us together and saying, are fine-tuning our skills as a junior design team, or as a junior designer is what I consider myself, in how we work together and how we collaborate, and really what was asked of the team in this board or in this presentation. And in that, time and time again, we bring it back to them. We bring it back to their teachers through our series of schematic design and design development meetings, taking everything from the floor plans and the sections to the massing. And then we use visualization tools like Enscape to walk them through, because not everyone understands a plan. And that is a way to aptly communicate what we're looking for and what the needs of the school actually is, what the needs of the community is. And in doing that, it's been a blast. We often do pinups like the stuff behind me, and we redline just about everything. We're very much and we're building towards a more pinup culture in our office. So to see those remnants of my past education at the University of Arkansas, where we were pinup forward all the time, it's continual in the workplace, to where you're not working in a silo at any time. You're working collaboratively, not only within your project team, but within your community as well.
That's awesome. And such a win-win too. Like, not only are kids able to give their perspective on and their say on what they want their school to look like, but also, like you're saying, like giving them exposure to what design looks like and maybe something that they'd want to do in the future too. Exactly.
And it's those soft, unintentional touch points that can make a big difference, a big impact in someone's life.
Definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about how you were the recipient of the 2023 Austin AIA Emerging Professional Award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Could you talk a little about what that means? Was it something that you applied for, nominated for?
Yeah, so I was Oh, that process was an incredible one. I've served on our AIA Austin team for the 5 years really since I've been in Austin. The first committee I was a part of, I'm sorry, was the Latinos in Architecture Committee, which was kind of welcomed me with open arms when I got there. Like I said, I grew up on the border, so in this half and half an American culture, half in Mexican culture. And my husband himself, he's from Mexico. He's from Morelia, Brian, and we attended LEA and really early on just got embraced in this warmth and in seeing programming that was representative of who we were. We dove all the way in, right? So I had the chance to curate exhibits and to bring voices together to build and go after grants. And in doing that, it would just led to a legacy that I've been able to continually contribute to AIA Austin through both Latinos in Architecture, through our Women in Architecture chapter, through our Emerging Professionals chapter. And in 2021, a part of the EP award is that you have to be licensed. You have to be a licensed architect in your first 10 years or your first 120 months of architecture. So, if you departed from it, you can come back and it doesn't count against you. And in that, in October of 2021, I got my license after a very lengthy, what felt like a really long journey. Achieved my licensure, joining the 1.7% of licensed Latinas out in the U.S., which is a mind-blowing number to me, right? That we're not even 2%, but yet we represent this large demographic of the population. Yes, so that's a big part of who I am, is about wanting to increase the number of Latina architects around the U.S., right? And in that, after that, I had started like I said, in 22, I served as co-chair for TXA, and then this past year, now I serve as on the advisory committee with the Young Architects Forum, serving our national body of about 37,000 members as a communications director. And in that, my executive director called me and she's like, "Gabby, are you going to pursue this?" I was like, "I think it would." Okay, I think so. I think it'd be a good idea. And then I had I had joined the board as well that year, had other board members who had and this tells you about community, right? The community, not only that we have in Austin, but I think as an architectural community, is really incredible when we have those moments of just empowering others and encouraging others to go after good things. And I had mentors and friends like Ricardo Magarrojas, who serves on the board, Sofia Razak, and then our current president, Christy Taylor, who are just very encouraging and said, if all else, just go after it. Just go after it and try it out and see what it does. So I put together a package, and thankfully it ended up on a really good note. And it's been so impactful, I think, seeing the other voices that were awarded, Ray Linares and seeing Veronica Castro de Barrera, a number of our other awardees. It was just so inspiring to hear them, and then made me feel, oh my gosh, I'm so fortunate to be in the room to listen to them. It put me in an entirely different mindset, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem. It's awesome that we can learn so much from each other too, and just bring each other up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about maybe advice you have for students studying architecture now, or the benefits of looking into something like AII, or AIA, and just some advice for us as students.
Okay, buckle up because I've got all of it. No, I think as students, you're in a really, really, and everyone's going to tell you this, and everyone says it when you're in this, but you're in a really special time of architecture right now, a special time not only for design, but for society as a whole. And a lot of the work that will come, not only the work, but the social and emotional wellness that I think we have to deal with. And deal with, I mean, we have to respond empathetically to, is going to be, how are we taking care of our people in the buildings? How are we being people-centric and then also environmentally forward? We have these two sides of the coin that we can talk about AI and we can talk about these other technologies that are coming, that are fantastic, that are incredible, that are tools at the end of the day. Invest in your education. Take the time to truly develop into what it is you're pursuing. but don't be afraid to shy from the profession itself. That's part of what I get to do with the NCARB Experience Committee. So I serve on that national committee of about 20 members. We take a really focused look on what professional practice means and how that plugs into education. So take the time to look at the both-sided coins, stay people-centric, and stay environmentally forward.
Such good advice. Yeah, and then I mean, like going into all of that as we're striving to create more environmentally friendly designs, creating more empathetic designs, where do you get your, I guess, creative side from, or your inspiration when you're starting a design?
Yes, so I always take a look again at either our design launch, our design process. And VLK, we're very much not every project is going to look the same. It's going to be a design for the district. So in that, each one has to be respective of what our district context is in. So I first look to the city, the region that we're placed in, what are the regional materials, what are the other facilities looking like? Not only that, but where are the places people are congregating to? Where are they spending the most time? Is it in a religious facility, or are they all meeting in a certain, is it the culture of a lunch spot? What is the culture and the community of the city that we're serving? And in sometimes it's a small rural community, sometimes it's a large metro. It will really depend. But in doing that, in spending a day or more than one day, right? Every time I come out to a meeting out in Liberty Hill, they're one of my clients. I think I love them. They're the Panthers. They're fantastic out there working on their new high school. Every time we're there, our design team, our architectural team, we go to the major lunch spot. We go to Dahlia's, right? And there we're seeing district administrators, we're seeing police officers, we're seeing service members who have just been a part of the community, who are integral to the community. Listening and watching and seeing their interactions reminds us those are the spaces that we need to create, not necessarily in the physical, that it needs to look like this restaurant, right? But having the spaces where congregation can happen, where people can gather, and being respectful of the local context. You know, there's a limestone quarry right down the road. So how are we going to be respectful to that? Limestone, you know what I mean? It's finding out those elements. In addition, I do have an incredible mentor in Jim Wallace, who sends out Monday motivations every month, and he keeps us on track. He just sends them out to the entire firm and shares work from Weissman, Freddie, to, you know, all different kinds of firms and work that's being done across the U.S., actually globally, to keep us on our toes for what's been some of the top architecture around the world. And it's fresh, it's inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And such a good point. Like, really the best way to get a read on a site, to understand what's really going on there, is just to immerse yourself in it and see what people are doing, how you can incorporate that. That's so cool.
Exactly.
This might be a tough question, but did you have one like favorite project that you've been able to work on?
You can't ask me that. They're all my favorite projects. There has been one. Okay, I'll say one of the best consultant experiences that I've had has been, I worked on a new middle school out in Hutto ISD. Go Hippos. I love the Hippos. That's where my mom works. And in that, they had asked for their new middle school, right? That we went through the schematic design launch process with them. Mm-hmm. And the community came together on a consensus for the design for their new middle school. In it, we had this great opportunity to have academic wings and have a cafeteria and gymnasium. It was a very, very efficient plan. And in the center, we had this courtyard. And we had science labs on the first floor that exited directly out into the courtyard. And we had in one of our user meetings, where we bring in teachers and we bring in our district administration to go through what exactly is needed in the space, the science teachers said, "You have this courtyard. What can we do with this courtyard?" And in the middle of the session, the tone shifted from talking about casework and talking about plumbing to talking about what is going to happen in this incredible space that we had the chance to integrate. And we brought our landscape designer for the next one, right? Because we were saying we go to them 2 days. It's like 2 full day charrettes. And in it, Olivia Pitt Perez, who's just, I love her. Her and I serve on an ACE board together. On the other side, this is our chance to work together here. She and I started sketching, and she's like, "Yeah, we can do this, and we can have this here." And we were talking about having grids on the ground so the students could understand the metric system. We're talking about having measurable tools on the columns that are to the side. We're talking about planting beds and learning opportunities in different areas, music courtyards at the middle school level. So it covers 6th through 8th grade curriculum. We were comparing their TEKS, which is the Texas Educational Knowledge and Skills, basically their required curriculum points like ours for NAB, for the educational facilities, and said, these are the points they need to hit. Okay, so how can we fit this into a learning opportunity in a courtyard? And Coleman and Associates was the firm that we partnered with for our landscape. And when I say they did an exceptional job, I stand by it. We've got some really incredible renderings and visualizations of what all happens in that courtyard, but it wouldn't have happened without having a really exceptional client, consultant, and architect relationship. And I have to also, I was the junior for that. My senior designer was Richard Hunt, who has also completed work all around the US. And he and I really had the opportunity to lead the discussion and say, what happens in this courtyard? How will it really, really be an activated space, as opposed to just calling it an activated space and then waiting for something to happen afterward? It was very intentional.
That's awesome. It's also making me think about, so we have an empty field in the middle of our campus. I'm actually looking at it right now. But last year, one of the projects we had to do was do something to it to allow community to come more together, to just get tighter bonds between students. And it just made me think about that. Like we talked about incorporating more pathways, having place of congregation, and just like it ties into the whole, like, what do students want on campus? Like, how can we make this a better place for them? And we had interviews, we talked to people about it. So just making me think about that.
I love it. People-centric. We have to ask the question. If all else, we need to ask the question. And I'm so happy to hear you did that. Yes, it's incredible.
Definitely. Well, one of the questions that, to kind of wrap things up, that we ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, if you could go back and tell one piece of advice to your student self, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh, girl, we're going to make it. It's going to be okay. So I'll give you a little anecdote before I leave. When I was when I was in my second year, everyone, our structures teacher asked the question to everyone in the hall. They said, raise your hand if you're going to be a licensed architect in here. Everyone rose their hand. A majority of the people rose their hand except for me. And I just put my hand down because I was pretty burnt out in architecture school. I had a tough first year. And then he goes, well, Gabby, why didn't you raise your hand? I said, I'm going to go to law school. But I don't think architecture is it for me. It's like, genuinely, I've had so much trouble. I've had so much problem. I just don't know if it's it for me, right? And in that, I had a professor who kind of like brought me aside afterward. It's the importance of professors, I'll tell you that. And we're like, look, I see you're discouraged. Let's talk through it. Let's figure out how to work through this together so we can help you do what you need to do. I had the chance to kind of get back on track. I got involved with an internship that next year. Fast forward to now, that was my second year, however many years later, I graduated in 2018 with my BArch. In 2021, I was the first person in my graduating class to become licensed. And to this day, I'm one of 3. So it was kind of my gut check to say, I'm really glad I didn't listen to my second year self, because that would have been a completely different path that I think I would have missed out on making an impact. And ever since, I've just been really service forward, because I know at the end of the day, that's where my strength is. That's who I am at my core. As long as I'm serving or helping others, I'm on track, and have been able to look at everything I do, not only volunteering, but also service to our school districts in that lens.
This is so great and so inspirational. Like, so many people need to hear this, especially after the first year. Like, I completely relate with that. I was very burnt out too. And I'm just like, I don't know if this is for me. And like, just having that goal that you stick with and know that if you push through, you just have that no matter what. Like, that's so great. I love that.
Get your license, Gabriella. That's all I can tell you. Get your license. Get after it. I'm here to support you if you ever need it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great. You're so passionate, and I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise.
Yeah, and for everybody watching, thanks so much for tuning in. And don't forget to like, comment, and share as the conversation continues from a student's perspective.
We hope you liked this discussion with the design industry from a student's perspective. Please like, share, and comment, and stay tuned for more inspiring conversations to come.